Grab a seat. Love is everything. It's all about love. Love is the most important Christian quality there is. The most important. It's more important than being brave. It's more important than any quality you can think of. It's not only the most important quality for a Christian, it's also the most precious aspect of God. You know, God has all those omnis, all those omnipresent. He's everywhere. All omnipotent. He's all-knowing. You know, He's all-powerful. But nothing is as precious as the reality that God loves you. That's what we love about Him. That's what's precious to us. It's the most common story in the Bible, is the story of love. You look through all these great stories. I was reading a story this week to my kids about when Benaiah went into the pit, the snowy pit, to kill a lion. A lot of people don't know that Bible story. And yet, the most common story in the Bible is the story of love. I think it was Martin Luther that said you can sum up the whole Bible in one word. Love. It is. It's this magnificent quality that is supreme. It produces the greatest blessings in a person's life. If someone is a loving person, it provides that individual a great reputation. And if they're not, it doesn't. It is the thing that holds relationships together, is love. You have love, you have stronger relationships. Not even Jesus could keep all of His relationships together, so let's give ourselves a break whenever we're having troubles. But it's love that binds our relationships together. And love is also what gives us the most inner peace. It is everything. And Paul, in the book of 1 Corinthians, chapter 13, wrote this beautiful description of what love is. And he begins by just talking about how it is supreme. It's everything. He says this, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 1 to 3. If I speak in the tongues of men or even of angels, but I don't have love, I'm only a noise. I'm only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains, but don't have love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give my body over to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Now, he's not downplaying all the things he just said. He's not going, faith that moves mountains, yeah, who cares about that? He's saying, even if you have all these wonderful traits, if you don't have love, then what do you really have? What good is success without someone to share it with? What good are people in your life if they don't bring you joy? And he says love is supreme. It's what it's all about. And then after that, that's when he starts the passage that we always quote at weddings. Love is patient, love is kind, and we go through and we quote it, which is ironic because Paul was not even married. He never even got married, and we're quoting his words about love at all the weddings that we have. And it's not defining love. He doesn't say this is what love is. It's describing love. He says, this is what love is like. And so we're going to, over the next several weeks, look at this love passage and explore love together. And what does he say love is? And he begins with two very positive statements, and then after that he turns into negative statements. It's like this, it's like this, it's not like this. We'll get on all the what it's not likes next week. But he starts off with these two statements, and that's what my whole sermon, my whole message today is going to be about, these two statements. He says, love is patient and love is kind. Yes, I'm preaching on patience after not having sleep for 4 nights. What in the world? How do you... my youngest is 5 years old. I'm supposed to be able to sleep through the night by now. What is the problem? From a fever one night and moaning to one kid we even sent away from us, and she called us because she's having troubles at night from afar. It's like, what's going on here? And those kids, they turn your hair gray, I guess. And it seemed like all this week, I was reminded of just how difficult it is to be patient. No joke. I drive up right behind a bank, and I'm going to use it to take the road behind it. And I pull up, and the truck in front of me just comes to a complete stop. I'm like, okay, what do? Do I honk? Seems a little bit obnoxious. I'm trying to decide what to do. I'm tired. I'm drained. Come on and move. What's going on? Fine, I'll just drive around. So I start to scoot like this, and as I do, this truck also mimics my movements and turns the front of their truck like this, aimed towards the tellers now to go in through the drive-thru of the bank. And now the truck is blocking the whole road. Like what? I look into the truck. It's an elderly woman who is endorsing her checks. Because she doesn't want to do it in front of the teller. She wants to do it on the road right in front of me. And I'm so frustrated. I'm so frustrated. It's like, get out of my way. What are you doing? Just move. And so I scoot a little bit more, and she just keeps scooching with me. She never even knew I existed. Even whenever she was finally done and drove on up, she never even saw me, and I never honked. It's hard to be patient. It's very hard. And for some of us, it's harder than others. I'm curious, is there anyone like me that you struggle with being a patient person? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, how about all those? Who you go? I don't know what your problem is. I'm very patient. Ah, there we go. We got 1. Maybe 2. Oh, man. Now, the interesting thing about this message, as it's the first trait he says. What is love like? Well, love is patient. It's the first thing he says to describe love. And if you think about it, patience is passive. It's passive. The first way he describes love is in a passive way. He doesn't tell you what to do. He tells you what not to do. Be patient is actually telling you to withhold some of these emotions you have. Kindness, that's an active thing. It's something I'm going to go do. Patience, it's something I'm just supposed to be. It's kind of an interesting, it's like a passive role and an active role. So let's talk about patience first, and then we'll talk about how love is also active. So in describing love, it's patient. There's a man in Tokyo today, I'm going to butcher his name. It's Osman Mentali. Osman Mentali, 20 years ago, was given a gift and came home with a new pet turtle. He was so excited, he brought it home, but he didn't know what kind of a turtle it was until it started to grow. He had one of those giant African turtles. Today it weighs over 150 pounds. This giant turtle in his apartment, and he loves it. He named the turtle Bonchan. Don't know what it means. And every day, he goes over to this giant turtle and puts a leash around the turtle's neck and goes out for a walk with the turtle. I I can't imagine having that kind of patience to take a turtle for a walk. And what should last for 5 minutes takes him an hour as he walks around this slow turtle. And people will stop and take pictures. And he doesn't even have to stop the walk. Because the turtle's so slow, you have time to come over, pose, take a picture, take another picture while the turtle's going. Oh man, the patience that some people have. If you describe love as patient, what are you actually saying about love? And I think this is one of the things you're saying. You're saying that love then maintains control. Have you ever had someone tell you that they love you, but you just sat back and went, I don't see the evidence of it? You're saying the word. The word might be love, but I don't see it. Love, true love, is going to seek to maintain control of oneself. This flies in the face of how many see love. We see love as something that kind of flies in and whisks us away, and it's this wave of emotion, and it's like, I can't help it, I just fell in love with this person. But actually, if you describe love, Paul's first way to describe it is in a controlled fashion. Love is patient, and it maintains control of your emotions. It's thoughtful, and it doesn't overreact. My youngest son, Macario, has been having some oddity with his feet. 5-year-old, you just go through these different phases. He started complaining a few weeks ago about his shoes. And every time we'd go somewhere, he's like, oh, my feet hurt. And he'd start walking like this. I'm like, are your shoes okay? I'd start looking at his shoe going, I think the shoe's fine, kid. I don't know what's wrong. I mean, it smells because you don't wear socks, but I think it's fine, put it back on. And he hates his shoes. He takes them off. Has anyone seen him running around barefoot here? Yeah, he hates them. And I'm like, if you're not going to have shoes on, get back in the kids' room. Come on, It's, oh man, running around barefoot. This last week, he's trying to put his shoes on. He's miserable. And I said, do you want me to just go buy you new shoes tonight? He's like, can I? Yes. So I take my son out to buy new shoes. We go to Walmart. I come in, it's like, okay, what do you want? He's like, I don't know. We tried these shoes on. He's like, no, these hurt. So, okay, we'll try, how about this pair? No. Okay, how about this pair? No. And of course, all the shoes are tied together, so you have to practice like this, And he's like, no, try this shoe on. Finally, we find a pair that work with him. We get home, and we take off the next day. We go out, and he's walking like this. I said, son, what's wrong? Why are all your shoes bad? And he wants his shoes off of his feet so bad. Now, I am in a parking lot, and I've been dealing with these shoes. I'm tired, I'm cranky, I'm frustrated. He's tiptoeing across the parking lot. Cars have stopped waiting for us. It's hard to show him love right now. This is hard. And yet that's what love is. Love is going to be patient with this. I want to just pick him up and say, okay, we're done. We're done with this. I'm tired of this. Let's just be done with this. I want to rip those shoes off and say, just play your life barefoot. I want to do something. I want to scold him. I want to say, what is wrong with you? There's nothing wrong with these shoes. It's all in your head. You're just some weird 5-year-old kid. There's all these emotions. Am I being fair? You know what I'm talking about? And yet, the most loving thing I can do is nothing. The most loving thing I can do is to bear with him and to just allow him to be him and to allow him to be slow, allow him to tiptoe and hurt, and to be patient. That's what love is. Paul describing love, I think it's interesting that that's the first thing he says. Love doesn't always react. Love knows when to be quiet and to shut up and to just bear with each other. And love maintains control. It's patient. To control your emotions, to control your anger, to control your jealousy, to control your frustrations, to be able to pause. Push the pause button. Take a breath. Relax. I think everyone in your life deserves patience from you. But to call it patient, to say love is patient, it's not only about control. If you think about what patience is, patience also implies some sense of measure, fair measure. Love is a measured response. When you call it patience, you're saying you're not just going to fly off the handle, and that's what impatience is. Impatience is never appropriate. It's like, that's it! You're grounded for the rest of your life! Yeah, that's not a measured response. That's never a measured response. And this impulse to react versus being patient. The loving thing will give a measured response to people. That before you respond, you pause and you truly consider the situation. Is my wife actually going to get dressed faster if I'm yelling at her? Probably not. Is my son or my daughter actually going to understand more and understand it more clearly if I'm losing my temper? Probably not. Is my neighbor going to cause me less grief if I'm overreacting, I'm impatient with them? Probably not. And to have a measured response and to realize that God can't really use me if I am a part of adding stress to all the people in my life. I need to have love, and love is patient. Finally, one other aspect of patience that just is when you say love is patient, I think you're also saying that love is consistent. It's consistent. Every time I go through a drive-through, every single time I'm assuming that it's possible it's going to take longer to get my order than it should. It's possible. Every single time it's possible, isn't it? I assume every time I go through a drive-thru, my order might be wrong. I always look at the bag, make sure it's all right? Might be wrong. There's only one place I go, and I'm confident I'm going to get through like that. One place I go, I don't even check the order. I know it's right. And what am I talking about? Chick-fil-A. No sermon is complete without mentioning just how awesome Chick-fil-A is. I love Chick-fil-A. It's always consistent. It's so consistent. It's consistent love that you can bank on. You can count on it. And that is what God's love is for us. It is this love that we don't wake up one day and God goes, you know what? You're just making me mad today. I'm just tired of loving you. Forget it, I'm just done with you for now. Okay, I'm sorry, here, I'll love you. God doesn't do that. It's the steady, always going to be there for you kind of love. And that's what we're supposed to have for each other. And when you say that, how am I describing this love? I'm describing it as patient. And patient love is a type of love that bears with each other all the time. I'm going to love you whenever you're fast, and I'm going to love you when you're slow. I'm going to love you when you're kind, and I'm going to love you when you're rude. I'm going to love you when you're smart, I'm going to love you when you're stupid. I'm going to love you whenever you're smart and wise. I'm going to love you when you're right, and I'm going to love you when you're wrong. I'm going to love you when you're helpful, and I'm going to love you when you're oh so annoying. To have that patient kind of love that's consistent and always there for you kind of love, That's what true love is. And so if you're going to love your wife, if you're going to love your neighbors, that's what your love should look like. It's not just, oh, I have these feelings for you. It's really the first thing Paul has to say about it. It's if you truly love each other, then have this kind of patience with each other. Accept that responsibility and realize that one of the best things you can do for someone is passive. Withhold yourself, bear with each other, and truly show them love. Now, after he says this, then he moves into the active role. And now it's like, okay, so love is patient and it's also kind. Love is kind. When you say love is kind, what do you mean by that? Here's what I think we mean. Here's three things. Number one, and when I say love is kind, I think I mean that love is friendly. Isn't that what kindness is? Isn't that welcoming? Isn't that what love is supposed to be? You can say you love someone, but if you never smile at them, if you never make them feel like they want to be around you because you're always up in arms and tense and tight, is it love? Is it? Shouldn't love have some sort of an appearance of love? Shouldn't it be kind? Let us be kind to each other, welcoming and caring. I think that all Christians ought to try their best to know people's names. I think that we ought to, and I'm terrible at names. Oh man. But that's so important. It's part of being kind and welcoming towards others. I think that we should always be smiling, even when it hurts, even when we're not in the mood, because that's just being kind to each other. And that's what love is. Love is kind. Yes, we got to smile. We got to engage each other. We got to ask them questions about their life and their interests. We ought to be gentlemen, and we ought to be ladies. We ought to show eye contact. Oh man, there's a lot of people that don't have the eye contact skill anymore. Have you noticed it is gone? You can talk, you can have a whole conversation with someone and they never look you in the eyes. But as Christians, we ought to be seeking to look someone else in the eyes because that's part of being kind to them. I believe that this is very basic, but it's also very hard for some Christians to do. And I think that it might be a challenge for you. Are you kind in your love? I once had a group of elders at a church that were great men. They were great. They were great leaders. They knew Scripture. They truly did care about people, but they didn't look like it. They looked so grumpy all the time. They would sit around the table and they would have conversations, and the conversation was always serious. So they're always scowling. And I do that sometimes. You ever pass me, I may look like I'm angry, and I'm not. I'm thinking very intently and deeply, and so it's not very welcoming. And I don't know if it's an appearance of kindness that we should have when we're loving people. I once had a lady then that wanted to talk to the eldership. She had this idea for a ministry that she wanted to do in the church. And she said, hey, can I come? I said, oh, that's great. Yeah. So I told the elders. They said they'd love to have her. She came into that room and sat down. And as she's talking, you could see her face looking around the room. And I'm looking around at my guys that I love. Good men who look like they are about ready to rip her head off. And they're not even angry. And they're sitting there glaring at her. And looking down, looking around, yawning. And I'm going, come on, guys, look kind. This is part of what loving people do. We're supposed to be kind to each other. I actually told them about that afterwards. They thought I was overreacting. I don't think I was. I really believe that showing kindness is important. Because that's the second thing Paul has to say about it. Love is patient. And love is kind. If you were going to describe love, how would you describe it? what would you mention first? Patience? Kindness. That's how Paul mentioned it. Love is kind. So you ought to be offering that kindness to others and offer people the greatest gift you have, your time. To sit down with someone and to give them you. To give someone who's older than you your time. To give someone younger than you your time. And to just allow them to be with you. To be patient and to be kind. And to invest yourself into their life. Next, I think if we say love is kind, I do think we mean this. I think so. I pondered this all week. I think we're also saying that love is also gentle. Isn't that part of kindness? If I say love is kind, can you be really rough around the edges and we say, oh, that's loving? Isn't that the part of the person that's not loving? Isn't there need to be some gentleness within you? Some tenderness in how you treat others? I'm not necessarily talking about being weak. I'm not talking about being frail or maybe the nice guy. I think I'm talking about having enough vulnerability, though, where you're courteous and respectful. And there is coming out of you this gentleness, knowing that you can't treat people rough. That people have hearts and emotions, feelings and perspectives, and so there's a kindness that comes out in true love, where we allow people to save face, where we build people up, and we become a person that they can come to us with any problem, and we're willing to take that on with them. And they know they can do that because they sense from us that we truly do care. 68-year-old Elsie Holdren lost her position at work. She received a letter of termination that said the reason she was fired. It said, due to your caring and giving nature, you are compromising your position as a security officer. Being caring and giving is not in the job requirement. And it is not what you have been paid to do. You're a security officer, you're not supposed to be nice. Poor lady, she got fired for being too nice. Oh, very few people actually will have that problem, won't they? And being nice and tender, that's a Christian aspect. That's the love we ought to offer to everyone. And finally, I think that love also, if we're saying that it's kind, if that's the way we're describing it, then whatever love is going to have this aspect of goodwillness, where we will truly want what's best for others, and will be considerate, and will want to serve each other. A kind person is going out of their way to make sure those around them are as comfortable as possible. You remember the story of Jesus washing feet? Jesus, he's at the table with the disciples, and he gets up and he goes over, puts a towel around his waist, and then he pours water into a basin. And then he goes over and he gets down on his knees, and he starts to wash his disciples' feet. And as he's caring for each one of them, you can see such kindness and compassion as he's caring for each one of his disciples, taking care of their feet. And he comes to Peter. And Peter says, Lord, are you going to wash my feet? And Jesus says, you don't understand what I'm doing right now, but soon you will. And Peter goes, no. You're not going to wash my feet. And Jesus says, hey, if you don't let me wash your feet, you can have nothing to do with me. So Peter, he quickly changes gears like he always does. And he's like, oh, okay, well then wash my hands and my head as well. Soak me, Lord, I want to be with you. And Jesus is like, no. You're clean. You just need your feet washed. Although not every one of you is clean, as he referenced Judas in the room, he continued to go around the room, which I assume he also washed Judas's feet. And after he finishes, he puts the mason up, he takes off the towel, and he comes over and he sits down. And he says, do you understand what I have done for you? You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is who I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. And he set this example for his disciples that their whole life should be about investing themselves in others, in caring for those around you. The world will teach you to put your needs above everyone else's. The world even has this view of love. It'll say that love is kind of like this, where you are walking around and you start having a relationship with someone and you're looking for someone that lights your fire. You're looking for someone who makes you excited. And finally you have it. And you go, oh, and you share the reality. I love you. And because you become something that's precious to me. And then years later, they make us so frustrated. And finally, we can't take anymore, and that spark is gone. And finally, we announce it, and it's a terrible announcement where we admit the truth. I just don't love you anymore. In this whole cycle of Hollywood love, what are we actually talking about? We're talking about something that's very selfish for the person. And love should be mutual. I'm not saying it shouldn't, but boy, God's love is completely different than that. And God doesn't come down and go, oh, let me see if I love you or not. God's love is so different because he just loves us by offering sacrificial love right at the beginning. He puts himself and his needs aside. And he invests himself in us and is willing to die on a cross for our sins. That is beautiful love. Love is patient, and love is kind. And whatever love is, and whatever love you have for others, take that love out tonight and examine it. And ask yourself, do I treat people in my life with patience? Am I kind to them? And if not, if that's a description of love and I'm not, then am I truly loving them as I should? Let's pray. Lord,